All right, welcome back to another edition of Texans Unfiltered, a Houston football podcast for your Houston Texans. I am Youngarigold, and I am back again for another morning show. Things are pretty interesting right now with how things are going with the Houston Texans head coaching search. This is the time where reports are really all we have to go off of. And it's pretty interesting, some of the reports that are coming out. I hope everybody's having a great week. I hope you guys are all ready for a great weekend. And I hope you guys have been enjoying the content. This is something that I'm doing more and more, and I'm really trying to get everything set up as far as giving you guys top tier quality videos. This is the first step. I have some stuff coming for the walls. The light above is going to be gone, and better cameras, actual mic stands, and mics using the Rodecaster, which I haven't used in a couple of years. Intros, logos, really working on the full package of everything for you guys. So thank you guys for everything you guys have done from a like, follow, comment perspective. Thanks for telling a friend. Continue to do so. As I've mentioned multiple times, 2023 is about fully hopping into the content creator side of things, and Texans Unfiltered is the start. As Texans Unfiltered is the baby, and has always been the baby, and will probably forever be the baby. I do have two other um, YouTube channels that'll be starting soon slash podcasts. I could kind of talk about one of them. One of them is called the Fandom Podcast. It's where I talk to the number one fan of different genres or different like parts of fandom. So music is one, sports is one, cinema, movie, and TV, and then art in general. So sneakers, fashion, art, like wall art, things of that nature. I actually already had one extremely big interview that I recorded on Monday night, and I'm working on some other really big ones as well. When I say big, I mean like big in the sense of outside of Houston. Um, so really excited about that. But let's hop into Texans news and things that are going on with the Texans. So Sean Payton interviewed the other day via Zoom. He's also already met with the Broncos. Reports were that he really enjoyed his conversation with the Broncos and really liked I forgot the specific person on the ownership group for the Broncos that he liked, but seems to have had a really good conversation with the Broncos. There's been a lot of different reports out there regarding Sean Payton. Supposedly he wants anywhere from $20 to $25 million a year. There's something that for me is a little off as far as the Texans go, given the fact that they have Coley, Lovey, Brian Gain, and I think Bill O'Brien last year's this year still on the books. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Let's say he does get 20 million. You're looking at a total of almost 35 to 40 million dollars this year, and then 32 or 33 the following year, and more will drop off. But that's a lot to pay for a head coach. Now you add in the fact that you also have draft capital that you'll have to give up to the Saints and Mickey Loomis for Sean Payton. I've been pretty clear on what my expectations are, or what I want to see the Texans do and where I want to see the Texans go. And I've said my piece on Sean Payton. It is not to discredit Sean Payton. Do I think he's a good head coach? Yes, absolutely. I'd be an idiot to lie or talk bad about what he has accomplished in the NFL. But the draft capital perspective is a big piece for me. I can't. I understand coaching is probably more important than quarterback. If you were to rank the two, I would go one coach, two quarterback, because even if you have the right quarterback, if you don't have the right coach that can maximize the talent of the quarterback, it really doesn't matter. So reports came out yesterday, according to Patrick Storm. Well, reports came out yesterday that the Saints and Mickey Loomis were looking for a very similar compensation that the Raiders got for John Gruden from the Bucks. I think that was 2 firsts and like another future pick. Sean Payton on Colin Cowherd on Monday stated what his understanding of the compensation being asked for, and it was a mid to late first round pick. I'm not going to go off of reports from a reporter, even though that reporter does and has been, with around the Saints for a long time, covering the Saints for a long time, is a legitimate reporter. This is not to diminish what he has reported, but more or less, I'm always going to go. I'm going to go where the source comes from. So Sean Payton, who is friends with Mickey Loomis, golfs with Mickey Loomis, has gone on boys trips with Mickey Loomis, spent a ton of time in New Orleans with Mickey Loomis. If Sean Payton says it's a mid to late first round pick, I believe that it's a mid to late first round pick. So I see a lot of people are upset talking about we can't give that up for Sean Payton. We can't give up 2 firsts and a second or whatever it may be for Sean Payton. And then I do see the other side of it where some people are rationalizing it, saying, "Look, if we could trade Deshaun Watson for Sean Payton, it's a win." I don't necessarily see it like that. I do think Sean has some. There should be some concern for Sean Payton uh, regarding the Houston Texans and him coming here, and a lot of it has to do with how he left the Saints. We really don't know what he is without Drew Brees. He's had quite a bit of losing seasons, given that he did have Drew Brees. Some of those Drew Brees was hurt, but those there's a lot more to the Sean Payton head coach hiring than I think people believe. I think people really are looking for credibility. They're really looking for they want this to be turned around and they want it to be turned around quick. And I do believe Sean Payton would turn it around quick. I think that we would see instant success. I think that we would see a lot of the things that fans and just the media in general want to see from the Texans. I just don't know if it's going to be long term. I don't know if it's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 years. He's 59 years old. How much longer is he going to coach? He just retired and went and did Fox for a year. Even during that year, saying it's not the right time to come back. We'll see how things go. And so you have to question. Does he want to coach or does he want to cash in on $20 to $25 million a year? And if you're having to have those questions and you have some of those reservations about Sean Payton, I just can't see the reason to move forward. And ultimately, that's what it boils down to for my reservations with Sean Payton. Again, I think he's a good coach. I think that he could turn this thing around. I just don't know if he's going to be the long term answer. And if you're going to give up draft compensation, it needs to be the long term answer, right? We've already gone through, 3 head coaches in the last 3 years. There's no reason to, have not necessarily a stopgap because there's going to be success and things of that nature that come with Sean Payton. But if it's 4 to 5 years, I don't want that. I want 7, 8 years. I want a guy that's coming in and is tied to the quarterback and is built around the quarterback and has a philosophy and culture that's going to continue to develop as he is here. And I don't want to go through another head coaching search. I do know that I think the average coach is 3 years in the NFL, but that doesn't mean that you can't find the next Andy Reid or Kyle Shanahan. And ultimately, that's what I'm looking for. So Patrick Storm reported that that Ian Rappaport also reported that the Texans have already basically agreed that they would be willing to meet the draft compensation that the Saints are looking for. Now we don't know what that is, so we don't know if it's what Nick Underhill or somebody else from the Saints maybe reported, saying that it was 2 firsts and some other draft compensation for Sean Payton. We don't know if it's what Sean Payton said, which is a mid first to late first round pick. I do believe that is going to that will be the price, and if that is the price that the Texans have said that they're willing to meet, then I mean I can't be too mad at giving up 1 first. I'd prefer for it to be next year's Browns pick. I definitely don't want it to be this year. I also have to question, like, if it is 2 firsts and a second, and if the Texans are an attractive job because of draft capital, why would Sean Payton want to come here after giving up 2 firsts and a second for him? That depletes one of the check boxes he has is the reason why the Texans are a desirable job. It just doesn't make sense. So if they are going to trade 1 pick, fine, bring Sean Payton in here, have him turn it around, potentially groom somebody that can take over for him when he does retire. and keep it moving. But we'll see how things go. I would assume we'll probably see a second interview sometime next week. Other than that, the Texans this week also interviewed the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos. I'm not very good with pronouncing his name. No disrespect, but I can't pronounce it. And he's an interesting candidate, a young candidate, defensive-minded candidate. Not somewhere I really want to go as far as like a defensive philosophy. I really want to build around the offense, and I want to build an offense. But that doesn't mean that can't be done with a defensive-minded head coach. I think it can be done, and we don't see it. So right now, I think the 8 teams in the playoffs, 7 out of the 8 head coaches are offensive-minded. So there is right now offense is very heavy in the NFL. I'd like to see that be the approach that the Texans take. But the right candidate is the right candidate, and I can't argue with that. I'm not in the rooms. I don't know what those conversations look like. I don't know how they're discussing the offense or what their offensive staff could look like. But I think that it would be best for the Texans go offense. Also, the Texans interviewed Thomas Brown, the tight end slash assistant head coach for the Los Angeles Rams. Been with Sean McVay for 3 years. That guy's very intriguing, very interesting. If you go and watch Mike Garafalo's interview he did with Thomas Brown, hard not to root for that guy. I could see that guy being up there with like the Salas with the way he coaches, very rah. Played in the NFL, played in college, very down to earth guy, super young. And I think he would bring a culture very similar to what the Lions have in Detroit. I don't know how high he ranks on the candidate board for Nick, Cal, and Hannah, but an interesting choice for sure. And then Ben Johnson informed all of the teams that wanted to interview him or have interviewed him that he will be staying with the Detroit Lions in the 2023 season as their offensive coordinator. There's lots of reasons for that to be the case. I see a lot of the people saying that it's the Texans are ruining this head coach search, and that they're scaring off candidates. I just can't see that being true. It's kind of a Debbie Downer approach to the Texans. I understand that things haven't been great these last 3 years, but they're interviewing the top candidates. They've interviewed Ben Johnson. The Colts interviewed Ben Johnson. Carolina was supposed to. They didn't. It could be more or less that, hey, I want to go and really strengthen my case for a head coach by continuing to build what we've started in Detroit with Dan Campbell and Jared Goff and that offense with Jameson Williams and St. Brown. And, they have a great offensive line. There's lots of positives to him staying in Detroit. If they make it to the playoffs, or who knows, where it could go from there, and they have a better season, now it's like you're the head coach candidate that other teams are going to want. And I think, it's a smart move. Sometimes you have to take a step back before you take a couple steps forward. And this is a pretty smart approach. He's going to learn more about being an offensive coordinator and more about, I'm sure Dan Campbell will help him with understanding more of the head coaching duties and things of that nature. But I don't buy the fact that this is all due to the Texans and nobody wants the Texans job and all this other stuff that, everybody wants to report. It's gotten lazy at this point. And honestly, it's boring. We get it. Like, you don't like the Texans. You want to be able to shit on them for whatever reason they may have. Some of them are deserved and some of them aren't. But I mean, come on. Like, you're telling me that a candidate backed out of all jobs because of the Texans? Like, write that down and read that back to yourself and tell me that makes sense. It's dumb. It's interesting. And it kind of goes back to last week when I was talking about just form your own opinion. Take all the information that you can get. So go to all these Twitter people, go to all these people on Facebook, go wherever you can to get your source or your news or whatever it may be. Lay them out on a desk or a table and read them, and then prioritize them, and then form your own opinion. It's not that difficult, and it's much better than just saying, "Oh my God, it's raining." They're shitting on the Texans again. The Texans are the joke of the NFL right now. They've been the joke of the NFL. We had a preacher be a part of the organization and make decisions. You had Bill O'Brien do what he did. You had Deshaun Watson. We had Cal stuff and owner stuff. It's just the Texans are an easy target, but just step out of that for 1 second, look at the things that Cal has done over the last year, and you can see that the Texans are headed in the right direction. And we just have to keep continuing that, or hoping that that continues and that they're on the right path. So that's kind of where things are right now with the Texans. Nothing new is going on. I would assume second round interviews will probably be announced after divisional round, or is it divisional round? No, what is it? Yeah, divisional round this weekend. I would assume we'll start to see more names as teams are eliminated with in the playoffs this weekend. But it'll be interesting to see. I think we're kind of getting to that ramp up period now. So next week will be, second interviews most likely. There's a good chance that second interview could lead to just a hire from that point. Could have news next week. I wouldn't expect news until probably the week after that. So the week leading up to the Super Bowl would probably or the week after the conference weekend, I would assume, is when we'll start to get announcements for head coaching jobs and who's hired and things of that nature. But just take in all the information you can and go join the Texans subreddit. They're a great group of guys. They're all about discussions. They, just like anywhere else, some people are just super opinionated and won't have a conversation about it. But our Texans is a great place for you guys to go have conversations and gather all the information in one place and just kind of form your opinion. But with that being said, I don't really have anything else. I appreciate you guys. Let's kind of see what the comments say here. I'm not willing to give up a first, second, and third. Let's go get Shane and Kafka. Yep, that would be good. Good morning, Shamar. I don't want somebody that quit on his old team. That's kind of where I'm at with things. The homie Ari from Twitter. Morning. What's up, Chris? How do you feel about this? Just guess. But Sean Payton comes to Houston and then brings, instead of Brady, Aaron Rodgers to the Texans. I mean, it's an interesting thought process. I'm not really sure that would be. I don't know if I want. I mean, you can't. How do you argue against having Aaron Rodgers? But at the end of the day, like, Aaron Rodgers has flirted with retirement for the last 3 years. If you think about what you have to give up for Sean Payton, you're probably going to have to give up something close for Aaron Rodgers, even if it's only 2 to 3 years that he plays. You really want to give up all that draft compensation for a 2 to 3 year window when your roster isn't even close to ready to compete? That seems like a pipe dream, and it seems like something that probably wouldn't lead to long-term success, which I think is what Cal and Nick and everybody else is looking for when it comes to this Texans team. So I can't see it. Y'all think that man come in here and do what he doing with the no team? No, their team is stacked. We not. I would go with Kafka or Ryans. Yeah, D'Amico. I think D'Amico for me, and I think a lot of you guys would probably agree if you actually just asked yourself in the mirror. D'Amico is more of a homecoming story, not to take away from who he would be as a head coach, but I think a lot of Texans fans just feel this bringing D'Amico home. One of our star players, one of our best players, probably a top 5 player, bringing him home, becoming the head coach, turning it around. Like, there's so many stories that write themselves with D'Amico Ryans coming to the Houston Texans. I've said it before. I don't want a defensive head coach. Jonathan Gannon, if I had to guess, is likely the top candidate for this job. He interviewed so many times already in the past, and he basically is Nick Caserio as a head coach. Talk the same philosophy. I believe they went to the same college or something like that. Like, they are very similar, and that would bring alignment. And I just don't. I think that's where it's gonna likely be, especially with Ben Johnson dropping out now. I do believe that Jonathan Gannon is the top candidate and will likely be the candidate. But who knows? Last year everybody had Gannon penciled in, and then boom, Lovie Smith came in. So Cal decided to hire Lovie. So things can change rather quickly. I think the one thing that we can say is at least there's no Hines Ward, Josh McCown. These are legitimate. This is a legitimate head coaching search that is being ran by Nick Caserio, Cal McNair, and Hannah McNair. So at the end of the day, I'm going to look at this offseason as a positive so far. They're doing the right things. We just have to hope that that continues. And I believe it will. I really do. I believe it will. I believe that they're on the right path. I honestly believe the last 2 years have been planned. And I believe that Nick Caserio in his press conference last week or whatever it was, came out and gave his best Oscar winning performance to show humility and empathy and a bit of humbleness that it's all me. This is I holding myself accountable. I'll retire. I'll leave if I all of that I believe was just a big performance, and I think the Texans are executing said plan, and they freed up the cap space. They got more potentially cap space being freed up this offseason. They could potentially have around 60 million. They got a lot of draft capital. They hit on a couple of free agents. They hit on some on some players in the draft over the last 2 years. There's pieces here. It was a good building block. Now I think they're kicking it into high gear. They're going to grab their head coach of the future. They're going to continue to draft well, hopefully, and then we'll go from there. So thoughts on Tom Brady and Sean Payton duo to the Texans. What's up, Toro? Nice to see you, bro. I don't want Tom Brady here. Honestly, if you brought Tom Brady here, I don't know if the fans would honestly be too excited about it, to be honest with you. I'm not sure that Tom Brady really moves the needle. And honestly, I don't know if it makes the team that much better. I mean, who's he going to throw to? Chris Moore? Brandon Cooks wants out. So I don't think it's the right move. Tom Brady's not the guy for me. But yeah. All right. Hopefully there's some news today. And if so, I will be back tomorrow. You think Brady would ever coach or do front office work? Possibly. I mean, I believe Brady's going to be in the booth. Brady wants to go in the booth. He's already got a deal signed for the booth. That's where he's going to be. So, but maybe eventually, right? He has flirted with partial ownership of the Miami Dolphins as far as reports go from, I think, last offseason or 3 off seasons ago. So he's definitely has some interest in some form in being part of an organization in some capacity. Not sure what that looks like. His life's changed a lot, so we'll see what that looks like. I think we build with an offensive-minded young guy. I agree. I think that's really the strongest, even if it's Steichen or Kafka. Kafka, I guess, isn't. Yeah, Kafka is still possible. He's just not interviewing yet. He's interviewing next week, right? Or did he pull out completely? I forgot. So many different reports. I like D'Amico too, but he's only a D guy. I'd like. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Gannon, there's lots of different things about Gannon that I actually do like. I understand like how the Eagles fans and Eagles local media are saying like, not a flexible defense, very stuck in his way when it comes to the defense and play calling and things of that nature. If he's not calling plays here and he's a head coach and he's managing his assistants and like offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators and empowering them to do what they need to do and just kind of overseeing the operation, I'm fine with it. I don't know if we're being honest, like with any of these candidates, even D'Amico, we really don't know what to expect, how they'll manage, what their culture will be like. We really don't know anything. I think the only one that we had somewhat of an idea of was Ben Johnson because of what we saw in the Lions and how the turnaround was and what their culture was on Hard Knocks and, the press conference interviews and things of that nature. But with Gannon and D'Amico and Kafka and just anybody, we really don't know what this is. This is just like a fun game for us to talk about. So the news is all over the place. Eagles fans hate Gannon, but he isn't a bad coach. Just doesn't work as well for them. Yeah, I mean, I've seen so many different things. Why did the Texans do a Zoom interview with Sean Payton? I think it was probably just one location and where they were. I think it was probably easier. And I think, it's kind of, I think it was more of like like they're filling each other out type of thing. It's kind of like a Tinder date. It's like, hey, let's kind of meet for a drink and let's see where things go. And I think potentially things evolved from there. They had a great conversation. And, Sean's still in the running for this head coaching position. So I would assume it was just easiest. Knock it out. They've been really big about they've been knocking out interviews left and right. And I think that they're really trying to go through this first round extremely quick. Really, once they have them set, 2, 3, 4 hours of conversations, figuring out where that goes and if that's, a candidate that they want to move on to the next round. But, interviewing takes time, no matter what position you're interviewing for. In companies for upper management, I'm in leadership at a tech company, and interviewing interviewing takes time, and especially when you got to make sure that you're hiring. I mean, every time you have to make sure you're hiring the right candidate, right? So you really have to get a feel for the person. There's a lot that goes into it: body language, tone. There's so many other things that we can get into. This isn't that type of show for that, but um, I think they're just kind of filling out Sean Payton. So, all right. With that being said, I'm gonna head out for the morning, get to work. Got some other things to do, but I appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure you guys tell a friend. Make sure you guys comment down. I've been going back and responding to all the comments on YouTube. I appreciate all of you guys being here in the morning. Again, if you guys have suggestions about the show, time-wise, anything like that, any other improvements you'd like to see, let me know. I'm in full growth mode, so I'm willing to listen to anything. And with that being said, I'm Youngarigold signing off for Texans Unfiltered. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.